Hello from Jonathan and me. Welcome to the programme.
First tonight, the mother and her young daughter killed when fire swept through the house they shared in Milton Keynes.
Today it emerged the fire in which Bola Agi Fumalayo and 3-year-old Fuyin died may have been started deliberately. A 48-year-old woman from Corby has been arrested.
Well, tonight, questions asked of the emergency services who closed down the scene before the victims' bodies were discovered. Neil Bradford's outside of the house for us now. Neil, good evening. We were with you last night, but it's a very different picture that's emerged this evening.
Yes, there is a sense of disbelief in this community who thought on Sunday that the drama was behind them. They witnessed a woman being rescued from this house. Then the following day they learnt that 2 people had lost their lives. And today came the news that it's possible that that fire has been started deliberately. Now, police are questioning a woman on suspicion of arson. But it's also emerged today that the flat Bola and Fuyin were living in was an unlicensed bedsit. Every time neighbours think they've heard the worst here, there is yet more bad news. Today they learned the intense fire that killed a mother and her 3-year-old daughter may have been started deliberately. No one knew the bodies of Bola and Fuyin Agi Fumalayo were inside the burnt-out building. It wasn't until 36 hours later that they were discovered. Last night, her family told me of their anger at the delay in finding their bodies.
They didn't do a thorough job, because up to two good bodies remain in a building, and they could not, trace them.
Firefighters have been forced to admit they got it wrong.
The information we had available to us at the time did lead us to believe that everyone was accounted for, certainly in terms of the areas that we'd already searched, and as a result we certainly stated that everyone had been accounted for, as we genuinely believed at that time.
Police too say they're investigating why the crime scene was not preserved.
I can't say that mistakes were made in that respect. What I can say is that we will find out what happened, and we will then get back to the family.
Who made the decision to close the crime scene? Was that a police decision based on what you were told by Bucks Fire and Rescue, or was that a decision by officers at the scene?
At the moment, what I will do is make sure that that investigation becomes very clear about who made what decision, and I will make that clear to the family of Bola and her daughter.
A 48-year-old woman from Corby is now being questioned on suspicion of arson. It's emerged the bedsit Bola and her daughter had just moved into was unlicensed, something that's becoming increasingly common in this part of Milton Keynes. The tenants of this unlicensed shared house agreed to show us around. For this mother and her 8-month-old baby, a large double bedroom is the only private space. In this house, 4 adults and 2 children share a kitchen and bathroom. There are some fire precautions in the hallway, including fire alarms and a fire blanket. Another tenant pays £110 a week to live here with his partner and 2-year-old daughter. So you share a kitchen?
Yeah, we share a kitchen, yeah.
And a bathroom?
And a bathroom, yeah.
But you have your living room, a bedroom is a living room?
Yeah, it's a living room, yeah.
In some areas of Milton Keynes, close to 1/3 of all houses have been converted into shared accommodation.
Well, the unlicensed ones in particular tend to be the ones that have the noise problems, the unruly parties, the disturbances in the middle of the night, the police calling, the rubbish outside, the dumped mattresses, I mean, as well as all the other problems like parking and so on.
Those living next to converted houses say fire regulations need to be rightly enforced. Bola and Fuyin, it is too late. 4 days have now passed since they died together. This afternoon, their bodies were finally removed from the house.
So, Neil, what have the family had to say today?
Well, I spoke to them a short while ago and they told me that they are planning to take things further. They want to make an official complaint to Buckinghamshire Fire and Rescue Service for how long it took them to find their relatives' bodies. They say they're now seeking legal advice. And as we heard from the police and the fire service, there are internal investigations going on to find out why it did take them so long and why the crime scene here was taken away just a few hours after the fire on Sunday.
Neil, are there any details emerging of the funeral arrangements of Bola and Fuyin?
Well, sadly, this is very much an active police investigation. As we heard, a woman is being questioned by detectives in Milton Keynes on suspicion of arson. Examinations inside the house are continuing, although the cordon has been lifted a great deal this evening. So, unfortunately, it will be several days before the bodies will be released to the families, and only then will they be able to start planning the funerals.
OK, thank you, Neil. Next, the controlling relationship which ended in a young law student murdering his own father.
Mark Alexander killed his father Samuel, then buried his body parts under concrete in the garden of their quiet village home near Milton Keynes.
Today, a jury at Reading Crown Court found the 22-year-old guilty of murder. Hannah Pettifer reports now on the investigation which led to his conviction.
Hi, I just wanted a quote for a cubic metre for delivery sometime this week.
OK, a cubic metre of what mix, or what are you using it for?
It's foundation, so fairly strong.
The chilling recording of Mark Alexander calmly ordering the concrete he used to bury his father's body.
Well, where's it going to? What town?
Drayton, Parslow, which is near Bletchley.
OK, oh yeah, Drayton, Parslow. Sorry, and what was your name?
Mr. Alexander.
Months after placing this order, the body of Mark Alexander's father, Samuel, was unearthed in the garden of their Buckinghamshire home. The 70-year-old retired university lecturer was last seen alive in August 2009. It was the delivery of the concrete 3 months after his disappearance that turned the concern of his neighbours into suspicion. A suspicion that only intensified when law student Mark evaded their questions about his father's whereabouts. Neighbours even began compiling a dossier of their concerns, a document that convinced one, a retired police inspector, to call in detectives.
Having read those notes, there was no doubt in my mind that there was something very, very untoward. His reasons for his father not making contact, and of course the arrival of this cement lorry, and the circumstances surrounding that just didn't make sense. It all pointed to me as very, very suspicious.
Those living in this small affluent cul-de-sac hoped their suspicions would prove to be a terrible misunderstanding. But behind the closed door of number 2 Prospect Close, a troubled relationship had boiled over. The court heard that 22-year-old Mark Alexander was struggling to lead his own life. A third-year law student at London's King's College, he was popular and sociable. He even sought election as president and communications officer of the college's Law Society. But he felt suffocated by the demands and expectations of his controlling father, who planned for him to study at the Sorbonne in Paris. Mark had no intention of taking the place and made secret arrangements to return to London.
Police believe Samuel Alexander was killed in September of last year. His body was probably stored in this garage for several months before parts of it were burned and buried under 4 layers of concrete and in the garden of this extensive corner plot.
Neighbours have described Egyptian-born Samuel Alexander as an awkward customer. He had fallen out with almost everyone on the street at one time or another. No one had ever been invited inside the house. Instead, he spoke to them through an upstairs window. As a child, Mark was not allowed to play with other children on the close. He was denied contact with his mother after his parents separated and told friends she was dead. Police say their investigation was helped by the neighbours' vigilance.
The victim was a very private man, but the neighbours noticed that they just weren't seeing him and became concerned, and then felt able to approach the local neighbourhood team, make them aware of their concerns.
Mark Alexander has always denied any involvement in his father's murder, a denial repeated throughout his interviews with police.
Have you, in any way, disposed of your dad's body?
No, I have not.
Have you dismembered his body?
No, not at all, no. Definitely not.
The talented legal student who once showed so much promise now finds himself on the other side of the law. He will spend the next part of his life under the control of the prison service. Hannah Pettifer, Anglia News, Drayton Parslow in Buckinghamshire.
Well,